Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as always, it's an honor to be able to rise and address such important issues in this place, and in particular in relation to the question that I asked the Prime Minister on November 23rd, which had specifically to do with the what has been come to known as the Green Slush Fund, where we have heard from high-level whistleblowers, bureaucrats, those involved, that have said that this is a sponsorship-level type scandal. And for those who may not be familiar with that specific scandal, because it's about 2 decades ago, when millions of dollars were funneled into Quebec and specifically were misappropriated, public funds misappropriated for the benefit of a few Liberal elites and closely connected. But Mr. Speaker, since November 23rd, we have a growing laundry list. In fact, when I was looking at the list of Trudeau scandals, dozens and dozens, and my apologies, I withdraw and reflect on that to say the Prime Minister's list of scandals and those of his government, the list of those scandals is long, dozens and dozens and dozens since he became Prime Minister. And even since November 23rd, we see a growing list. Most recently, the $80,000+ holiday, free gift given by a so-called friend of the Trudeau family, where he didn't have any concerns, like any other Canadian, went and stayed at an $80,000 luxury resort. Mr. Speaker, certainly the Canadians I know don't have friends that own $80,000 per week luxury resorts. We have seen the smackdown in the courts of the Emergencies Act, a calling out of unbelievable proportions, showing that the government was completely wrong in their application of the criteria required to take away the rights of Canadians, yet they did it anyways. Another unbelievable scandal. And this is just since November 23rd that this list of scandals has grown. We see more information related to the Arrive scam app, where it was recently revealed that there is fraudulent activity that continues to force us to ask those questions about where did the money go and who got rich. We see that this pattern of poor judgment speaks to something that not only erodes trust in the institutions of government, because, Mr. Speaker, that is a very, very serious issue and something that will have to be grappled with not only today, but for decades to come as current and future parliamentarians wrestle with the fact that that Prime Minister and those Liberals were so irresponsible with the trust that was granted to them to govern our country. But, Mr. Speaker, what I heard from so many constituents, what Conservatives have heard from across the country, is that while those Liberals are living high, luxury resorts, playing loose with the public purse, is that Canadians are suffering, visiting food banks in record numbers. Mr. Speaker, are seeing the cost of housing become unattainable, unaffordable, and in some cases losing their homes. When a senior goes to the checkout, Mr. Speaker, and is forced to have to, in what is incredibly embarrassing, put items back or ask the cashier to not ring them through because they can't afford those items. Mr. Speaker, the reality Canadians are facing could not be more dire, yet it's those Liberals, scandal-plagued, are so out of touch that they have ignored the reality that Canadians are facing while they and their buddies get rich. Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve better.
Honorable secrétaire parlementaire du ministre de l'Environnement et du Changement climatique et du ministre de l'Énergie et des Ressources naturelles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I believe that the content of the question really, at least in the first instance, maybe slightly now, was about the Sustainable Development Technology Canada. I'm going to be speaking about that. When the government first became aware of the allegations related to the management of Sustainable Development Technology Canada, the minister took action. Immediate action was taken because any organization entrusted with public funds is expected to act with diligence, care, and integrity in all facets of their work. An investigation was undertaken to get to the facts of the situation and determine the most prudent forward plan of action. The fact-finding exercise conducted by the firm of RCGT was just the beginning. That exercise found no clear evidence of deliberate unethical behavior. There were, however, several instances in which the organization was not in full compliance with its contribution agreement. To strengthen practices, SDTC was issued a management action plan with a deadline of December 31st for implementation. SDTC has worked diligently to provide documentation to demonstrate the changes they have made. The department is now in the process of assessing the completeness of SDTC's response and ensuring that the appropriate measures are in place to restore confidence in the management of the organization. Everyone involved is eager to get back to supporting Canadian business. As we know, after discussions with the Auditor General, there is now a full audit of the organization underway. We look forward to the report of the Auditor General and will act with the same prudence we have demonstrated on this file to implement any of the Auditor General's recommendations. There is no cover-up, Mr. Speaker. We have put in place a process for any current or former employee to come forward and share their views. The law firm McCarthy Tetro has been appointed to conduct a review of human resources management at SDTC. The organization has agreed to take the steps needed to enable this thorough review, allowing current and former employees to speak freely without violating any applicable settlement agreements or non-disclosure agreements. This process is underway, and I'm confident that it will lead to strengthened practices at SDTC. The government has done its due diligence. This issue has been taken up in the most appropriate venues, that is the Auditor General, the HR review by McCarthy Tetro, and the Ethics Commissioner investigation. The issues brought forward in this case are important and require us to apply the appropriate due process and due diligence to get the truth. Thank you.
The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me translate what the Parliamentary Secretary just stated. Don't worry, we got it, and it's not really our fault, but if it is, don't worry about it, because we'll figure out some way to deal with it somehow, sometime in the future. But again, just don't worry. We'll move on. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are tired of the irresponsible management of the public purse. Canadians are tired of the scandals. They're tired of the pattern of poor judgment that starts at the top. Now, Mr. Speaker, I come from a rural area where common sense rules. And while those Liberals, in some cases literally, want Canadians to freeze in the dark because of their bad ideological decision-making, Mr. Speaker, it's about time that those Liberals realize that the buck stops with them. It's time for them to take responsibility, acknowledge their failures, acknowledge the scandal that has plagued them every day since they were elected, take responsibility, and start respecting the public purse.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, it's integral that due process and due diligence continue to guide our actions. The work of the AG, the Ethics Commissioner, and the review being led by McCarthy Tetro will provide the facts that we need to guide our next steps. At the same time, department officials are working to ensure that the organization has met its obligation to implement the corrective measures prescribed by the Management Response and Action Plan. We are committed to ensuring that the appropriate governance structures are in place going forward, and we can all agree on this. It's imperative that we focus all of our efforts on supporting Canadian innovators in the clean tech sector.